She didn't lose her money in the stock market. She didn't gamble it away. She gave it to family. Angela Morris was 52 when she started saying yes to just small help. $2,000 for her brother's car repair, $5,000 to help her niece with rent, $8,000 to cover her mother's medical bill just for now. Each time, she told herself the same thing: they'll pay me back. They never did. Over 4 years, Angela gave away nearly $67,000, most of her savings. No contracts, no repayment plan, no boundaries. What began as generosity slowly became obligation, and by the time she realized it, her retirement account was empty, and the people she helped had stopped answering her calls. This isn't a story about greed, it's about guilt. If you value stories that change the way you see money, like this video and subscribe to the Wealth Fables. It helps YouTube recommend it to more people. Now, stay with the full story. Angela Morris was 52 years old and had spent more than 2 decades building what she believed was a stable financial life. She lived in Columbus, Ohio, in a modest 3-bedroom home she had nearly paid off. She worked as a senior administrative manager at a regional healthcare company, earning about $92,000 a year. She wasn't flashy, but she was disciplined. She contributed consistently to her 401k, had built a savings cushion of nearly $85,000 over the years, and prided herself on being the responsible one in her family. Angela had always been dependable. Growing up as the oldest of 3 siblings, she naturally stepped into the role of problem solver early in life. When something went wrong, people called her. When someone needed advice, she gave it. When money got tight in the family, she quietly stepped in. At first, it felt good. It felt like leadership. It felt like love. The first loan was small and seemingly harmless. Her younger brother's transmission failed unexpectedly, and he needed $2,300 to get back on the road so he wouldn't lose his job. Angela transferred the money the same day. He promised to repay her within 3 months. She didn't write anything down. She trusted him. He paid back $400 over time, then stopped mentioning it. She didn't press. Then came her niece, recently divorced, needing $6,000 to cover rent and legal fees. "Just until I get back on my feet," she said through tears. Angela wired the money from her savings account. Again, no written agreement. Again, no clear repayment schedule. Months passed. The subject faded. The pattern continued. Medical bills, late mortgage payments, credit card emergencies, tuition shortfalls. Each request came wrapped in urgency and emotion. Angela never offered money unprompted. She simply couldn't say no when asked. She told herself it was temporary support. She told herself she had enough. She told herself family comes first. What she didn't realize was how quietly the numbers were shrinking. Every transfer came from her long-term savings bucket, the account she once called her retirement bridge. Each withdrawal felt justified in isolation, but together they were eroding years of disciplined saving. Angela still paid her bills on time. She still contributed to her 401k. From the outside, her life looked intact, but inside, something was shifting. Her emergency fund was thinner. Her cushion was softer. The financial confidence she once felt began to wobble. She didn't resent her family. She feared disappointing them, and so she kept saying yes, even as her own security quietly declined. The breaking point didn't come from a dramatic argument. It came from a spreadsheet. One Sunday afternoon, Angela sat at her dining room table with her laptop open, intending to review her retirement projections. She hadn't checked them in detail for nearly a year. Work had been busy. Life had been noisy. Helping family had felt more urgent than reviewing numbers that seemed on track. But when she logged into her retirement dashboard and adjusted the expected retirement age to 65, the projected monthly income dropped lower than she remembered. Much lower. She frowned and opened her savings account. History transfer. $2,300. Transfer. $6,000. Transfer. $8,400. Transfer. $4,750. Transfer. $9,200. The list continued. She started adding them manually into a column. After 20 minutes, her chest tightened. Over 4 years, she had transferred $67,300 to family members. Some had repaid small portions. Most hadn't. Her once $85,000 savings cushion was now under $18,000. She sat back in her chair, stunned, not because she didn't know she had helped, but because she had never totaled it individually. Each request felt manageable. Collectively, they were catastrophic. Then came the second realization. She opened her credit card app. For the first time in years, she was carrying a balance $6,800 because she had covered a relative's temporary shortfall 2 months earlier and hadn't replenished her savings yet. She had justified it as short-term, but now she saw the pattern clearly. She was borrowing to remain generous. Her generosity was no longer surplusy. It was self-sacrifice. That afternoon, her younger brother called again. His tone was hesitant but familiar. He was behind on mortgage payments and needed just $5,000 to catch up. He promised this time would be different. He promised he'd set up automatic repayments. Angela felt the old reflex rise in her chest, the urge to solve, to rescue, to stabilize. But something was different. Instead of answering immediately, she looked back at her spreadsheet. $67,300 for years. Minimal. Repayments, retirement projections, shrinking for the first time. She asked herself a question she had avoided for years. If I keep saying yes, what happens to me? Silence filled the room. The invisible problem was no longer invisible. It wasn't generosity. It was the absence of boundaries. And boundaries, once ignored long enough, become expensive. That night, Angela didn't draft a speech. She didn't rehearse confrontations. She did something far quieter and far more powerful. She created a rule. For years, her money had been emotionally accessible. If someone she loved needed help, her savings became immediately available. There was no structure between request and transfer, no pause, no framework, just guilt and a quick bank transaction. So she wrote a sentence in her notebook. I do not loan money I cannot afford to permanently lose. Then she added a second layer. All financial help must come from a defined family support fund, capped annually. She calculated what she could responsibly allocate without damaging her retirement or emergency security. The number was uncomfortable. $5,000 per year, not $20,000, not $15,000. 5. That amount would come from discretionary surplus, not from retirement accounts, not from her core savings, not from credit, and once it was gone for the year, it was gone. No exceptions. But she didn't stop there. She added 2 additional rules. Any loan above $1,000 required a written repayment plan. If repayment terms weren't respected, no future loans would be offered. These weren't punishments, they were protections. The next test came quickly. Her brother called again about the mortgage shortfall. This time, instead of answering emotionally, she paused. She told him she needed 24 hours to review her budget. That pause alone felt radical. The following evening, she called him back calmly. I can help with $2,000 from my support budget, she said, but I can't cover the full amount. And if this is a loan, we need a written repayment schedule. There was silence on the other end, then mild resistance, then disappointment. For the first time in years, Angela felt the weight of someone else's frustration directed at her. It hurt, but it didn't break her. He declined the partial help, and that was the moment she understood something life-changing. Some people don't need help, they need rescue, and rescue is unsustainable. Over the next several months, she applied the same structure consistently. When her niece asked for assistance again, Angela asked for a repayment outline. The request never materialized. When another relative hinted at needing temporary help, Angela referred to her annual support cap. Slowly, the calls decreased, not because she stopped loving her family, but because she stopped being an open financial safety net. Her retirement contributions increased again. She rebuilt her emergency fund methodically. She paid off the $6,800 credit card balance within 4 months. The forgotten rule wasn't about selfishness, it was about sustainability. Generosity without boundaries empties you. Generosity with structure preserves you. The first few months after setting boundaries were emotionally heavier than financially difficult. Angela had expected resistance, but she hadn't anticipated the subtle shift in how some family members interacted with her. The calls became shorter. Invitations felt less frequent. There was a quiet cooling in certain relationships that once revolved around crisis and support. For a while, she questioned herself. Was she becoming selfish? Had money changed her? But as the emotional noise settled, something else grew louder. Stability. Without constant emergency transfers draining her savings, her numbers began moving in a different direction. The $18,000 remaining in her savings account slowly climbed past $25,000. then $32,000. She automated an additional 5% into her 401k, increasing her retirement contributions for the first time in years. The $6,800 credit card balance that had once symbolized her slipping control was eliminated completely. She no longer borrowed to remain generous. The annual $5,000 family support fund became a tool, not a trap. When a genuine emergency arose, her mother needed a short-term medical expense covered. Angela helped within the cap. Because the amount was predefined, the decision didn't feel emotional or reactive. It felt structured, and when the fund reached its limit that year, she calmly explained that she couldn't offer additional financial support until the following January. There were no long explanations, no guilt-fueled justifications, just clarity. Something unexpected happened as well. A few family members began solving their own problems differently. Without automatic financial rescue available, they negotiated payment plans, picked up extra shifts, sold unused items, or restructured debts. Angela realized that in constantly protecting them from discomfort, she may have unintentionally delayed their growth. 2 years after that Sunday spreadsheet moment, her financial position looked dramatically different. Her savings had grown back to $72,000. Her retirement projections stabilized. She was on track again, not for luxury, but for dignity and independence in her later years. More importantly, she no longer felt financially fragile. The biggest shift wasn't the money, it was her posture. She answered calls without anxiety. She made financial decisions without panic. She helped when she could, not when she was pressured. Her generosity became intentional. Instead of automatic. She didn't become harder, she became clearer, and clarity replaced resentment. 3 years earlier, Angela believed being generous meant always saying yes. Now she understood something deeper. Saying yes to everyone else had quietly meant saying no to herself. Her retirement account was no longer shrinking. Her emergency fund was no longer fragile. Her credit cards were paid off. She still lived in the same house in Columbus. She still worked the same job. Her income hadn't dramatically increased. There was no inheritance, no financial windfall, no sudden breakthrough. The difference was structural. Angela no longer confused love with financial sacrifice. She had learned that money, given without boundaries, doesn't strengthen relationships, it complicates them. When help becomes expected, gratitude fades. When rescue becomes routine, responsibility weakens. And when generosity comes from fear of disappointing others, it quietly drains the giver. For years, she believed she was protecting her family from hardship, but in reality, she had been absorbing their instability into her own life. Every unstructured loan delayed her retirement security. Every guilt-driven transfer eroded her peace. Every just this once compounded into tens of thousands of dollars. The turning point wasn't confrontation, it was calculation. When she saw the total, $67,300, the illusion broke. That number represented more than money. It represented time, years of disciplined saving, future freedom, security in her 60s and 70s, and she nearly traded it all for approval. Here is the lesson her story leaves behind. Generosity without limits becomes self-destruction. Healthy giving requires structure, a defined budget, clear terms, the willingness to hear disappointment without collapsing. Angela didn't stop loving her family. She stopped financing chaos, and once she did, something powerful happened. Respect replaced expectation. Clarity replaced guilt. Stability replaced anxiety. If you've ever felt pressure to say yes because family comes first, remember this: you cannot pour from an empty retirement account. You cannot secure everyone else's future by sacrificing your own. Sometimes, the most loving word for them and for you is no. And sometimes financial freedom doesn't begin with earning more, it begins with boundaries.